Here we are live on Substack. This is fun. I'm Nell, Derek Debevoise Dewey, and my Substack is Subtract to Succeed. And Bree Groff is an author and also behind What Work Should Be as her Substack. So welcome from whichever side of the fence you came, and welcome, Bree. So fun to be with you.
Yeah, likewise.
We connected. I love Bree's book. I think it is really brilliant and timely and actually overdue, but better late than never. So thank you for putting it out into the world. I have never had a real job in the sense of like, I had
Ooh.
one like horribly unpleasant, not fun job and knew that like never again. So when I came across your book and your work, I was like, hallelujah, amen. Because you're singing it like from the depths of corporate. I mean, you were really in the belly of the beast.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, definitely in consulting, you're in the belly of many beasts. You're like sort of peeking in, like, what's this beast look like? Yes, I'm well versed in the corporate sphere. What I think is like kind of cool about it, you can make impact at scale, and also what's terrible about it, which is you have to wear your fanciest pants. And, you just can't entirely be yourself or your most
Yeah.
creative, and so,
Yeah.
yeah, it felt like I've seen some things, through all the dozens of consulting engagements that I just wanted to share.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think it's a labor of love and I appreciate it. And I loved when I'm at the very early stages of a book and when we connected
Mm.
through Recognized Expert and you were like, but also like, I've just met a lot of cool people. So that's why I wrote a book, which I love.
Yeah.
I'll be in your circle of people who think you're cool and want to be cool with you. So yeah, here's to that.
That is actually, like, most of the I'm like, I think I did it for the friends. Like, books are famously not money-making endeavors.
Mm,
At
no.
best, they're impact-making endeavors, but what I learned is they're friend-making endeavors, because you, like, pour your heart out there, and then people who, like, sort of resonate with that come say hi.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, this is the best. Who knew it would be so good for my social life?"
Yeah. So, in our mashup of what work should be and
Mhm.
subtract to succeed, we're going to try to get to the bottom of like, what are at least some of the things that we would need to subtract to make work actually fun? Because that's the title of the book, which I guess we should reveal. I should reveal is Today Was Fun,
Yeah,
a book about work. No, actually,
seriously.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, seriously, actually. And so the first place that, is kind of logical to start, but I think is important is where this book came from. And it's, as for many authors, I think a pretty personal journey for you. Will you start us off there?
Yes. Yeah, I'd wanted to write a book for many years just based on professional learnings, and so that comes from sort of a heady place of like, I've learned some things, I want to share some things. But I never really got started on the project until my world was rocked personally. So in 2022, and I write about it in the book, my mom was diagnosed with a terminal cancer. My father already had Alzheimer's. I was an only child. It just like really seismically shifted the ground underneath me. And I didn't know how connected my, I don't know, existential learnings would be with work until I was actually
Mhm.
in it. But there was this one moment when I was at the cancer center with my mom, and when you're in the midst of sort of looking around at all of these other cancer patients, realizing the whole cancer center exists for one reason, which is to save and treasure and maintain good human days. And then in that moment, I got a text from a friend who's like, "Oh, hope you're doing okay. Things are fine at the office, but I can't wait for it to be Friday." I thought to myself, wow, we are really getting it wrong. And not to say my friend was getting it wrong, but just so the whole culture around work that we try so desperately to get through the week, to sort of like wish away Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, such that we can live for the weekend.
Mm.
When in reality, we're all going to come to a point in our lives when we wish we had more days, right? Like, I forget who said it, the quote, "We're all dead in the long run." Which is, like, so depressing, but true.
But accurate.
You only get so many days on the planet, and so if we're gonna be spending a lot of them working, 5/7 of each week, then they should probably be good days. We should probably value them that way. So, with all of that, sort of like newfound existential insight, thought, I know some things about how to have a good day at work, about how to lead a team that has a good day at work. And so now I want to write it all down. And I did.
Well, congratulations, and yet again, thank you. I think it is, that's such the profound nugget of it. And so, in thinking about the conversation of the work, it's like we need to subtract wishing away our lives for starters. It just came up yesterday in another conversation of a founder who kind of not in the day to day, Monday to Friday, but over the 7 years of building a company, which is how I met him because it was a very purpose driven company. He was talking about his own ikigai in building this data for empathy at work and very intentionally supporting his employees in that. And here we are 5 years later, and he had a $50 million exit. So, obviously we don't know his whole balance sheet, but like, congratulations.
Good job.
And then hit a wall. And his
Oh,
whole like 7 year learning was not sacrificing the 7 year sprint or marathon or whatever to exit for some future life, right? And so I've just been thinking about you and him in that of wishing away the hour or the meeting or the
mhm.
week or the year or the 7 years to get to some unknown future. Why would we do
Yes.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I limit my wishing away to things like when I'm doing planks, and I'm like, "I could be done with this minute right now." Sometimes the dentist, I'm like, "We could
Mhm.
skip over this part." But otherwise, yeah, I try really intentionally to find some source of joy even in the hard days. And it's not to say every day will be fun, and I definitely don't
Yeah.
beat myself up on days when I'm not having fun, but I do believe because I've seen that there's ways to find joy even in a pretty miserable job.
Mm,
Because it doesn't all have to come from the purpose of your work or your career success, which I think has been like it's a good thing. Love purpose, love career success, but like largely overblown.
yeah.
You look at the show The Office, and, like, they had no purpose. They were selling paper, and yet still, like, they made so many good days for themselves. Like, they made their own fun, and so, fun
Yeah.
can come from, I hate my role, but, I've one work bestie, and we, like, smirk at each other from across the meeting room. Like,
Yeah.
live in that.
Yeah.
I just think it's important to it's important to stake a claim in the value of our own happiness,
Hmm.
especially in a world where we're considered human resources. It's actually kind of radical to say, oh, no, my joy, my pleasure, my fun at work matters.
Yeah.
It's not like I've sold away this day. This day is still mine.
Yes. And I told you I wore this very fun, flashy outfit on purpose,
I love it.
inspired by the mention of socks in your book. So I won't let you see my socks because they're not actually that fun today. But this part is really fun for you. So tell us what is the deal about the socks?
um, if it helps, I'm in my apartment, so I have bare feet. So
Okay,
that's my deviance.
that's kind of fun.
Um, yeah, so chapter 2 is all it's called, your brain works whether you're wearing a suit or stretchy pants, and the
Did you
idea
test that
is
like in a lab? Are you sure about that?
I'm really
Is there a
sure.
double blind? Is there a double blind
There
behind
should
it?
be.
Are we peer
Alright,
reviewed?
yoga pants group to the left, yeah. Um, yeah. Same thing, like, whether my hair is wet or dry, like, my hair is wet right now because I took a midday shower because that's what you do sometimes when you're working from home. My brain is just as functional, doesn't
Yeah.
care. Um, but speaking of subtracting things, like, I think one of the most important things that you can subtract from your working day is all of the mental energy we put
Mm,
into performing professionalism or being palatable. Now, this is really hard because the playing field is not easy, or not even. For marginalized communities, it's a lot harder to be authentic and accepted, right? Like if, um, so some people have like more of an uphill battle, and yet it's so important to try to crack away at the kind of I think what it is, it's sort of like, uh, it's like the mask, a business mask. It's like your candy coating that you put on because really what it's doing no functional good for the business. It's not doing any good for us because it's very hard to enjoy yourself if you don't feel like yourself. And so not only do we put on our fancy clothes, but we also put on our fancy way of speaking or like we say the things that will get us head nods.
Mm.
And it's good for nobody. It drains a lot of energy. It's not good for our mental health. And it's also not good for the business as well. Because then people are just saying the things, you're sort of regurgitating other things that you've heard said. You're showing up as palatable, which is, like, such a gross word to begin with. It's like implies you're being chewed up and you wanna taste nice. Like, I wanna be nice on your palate. Um, so my dream of workplaces is that you can show up wearing anything you want, right? Like, hair wet or dry. If you're gonna go exercise for a run after work, show up in your running pants. Now that's a long way away, especially in some industries. So I'm not in the business of getting anyone fired. Usually, my guidance is try and be 10% more comfortable in
Mhm.
your own skin. And usually, nothing bad happens. So, where the socks come in is even if you work in finance and you got to wear the blazer or whatever, just try wearing a colorful sock. Usually it's safe enough. Like, no one's going to be fired over it. You might get a few nice comments and it has the benefit of inspiring other people to be 10% more themselves, which really that's what you want in a culture. You want people to feel not that they have to bring their whole selves to work, which I know is debated. You're not like telling deep dark secrets. You're just fucking wearing the socks you want to wear. Like that's this shouldn't be controversial. But it is profound. I think
And
it is
yet,
profound that you can feel accepted in a workplace
yeah,
while feeling comfortable, while
yeah.
feeling like the best version of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a I really appreciate the kind of evolution, not revolution approach to that, but I think it is those, that's what I see through subtraction. It is those experiments, right? Those small 10% tweaks, 5% tweaks, 20%, whatever it is in different areas of our life that both do us that benefit. But I think your unlock, right? That for me, that's my role of stop, drop, and roll. Like the modeling of that. That's when subtraction becomes systems change and paradigm shift, right? That's when, because work is so many places are really kind of profoundly messed up right now, whether it's corporate culture, whether it's like, anyway, people know what is messed up. It's a lot. And so and so these brave little things are a permission giver, right? And then maybe your boss starts wearing wacky pants because they can get away with it because of a little more seniority or I just think it
Mhm.
it it is the crack through which things open. And, the point that's been coming up a lot too is this choice, right? It's a choice to approach it with fun. And I'm not going to wish this day away. And so, even if everything is terrible, even if we're in a misogynistic, extractive, capitalist company that I think is going down the tubes on top of all of it, see
That
you,
really rolled off
friends.
your tongue.
See you, friends. Yeah, I know it was easy to picture somehow. I'm going to choose this, which I agree with and is so important. And how do we balance or make sense of or hold ourselves accountable for not just throwing in the towel and participating in a system that we think is really problematic and broken.
It will always be a balance between succeeding in the world as it exists and changing the world for others and for your future self. Like that will just always be true in how progress happens. So, for the same reason, I don't show up to somebody's wedding in a tracksuit, like there's some sense of like, okay, what's normal around here? You want to like,
Yeah.
and to some degree, like there's a kernel of value in in professionalism in that,
Mhm.
well, underneath the surface, what it's doing is that you're trying to demonstrate care. You're trying to
Mhm.
demonstrate, like, I've prepared for you. in my appearance, even though it has no impact on the work whatsoever. But there is a bit of like I'm respectful of this environment. So like the kernel of what's good there doesn't need to be thrown away. Um, but when it gets to a point where people are being excluded because they don't look, sound, act like the dominant business culture, then it's worth chipping away through these like small deviance makes it sound so bad, but what I just mean is deviation from the
Sucks.
norm, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it just could be anything, sharing 10% more about yourself as a human so that,
Mhm.
you normalize being a human, especially in a leadership position. I just think it's so important to do things like, "Oh, I have to go to the doctor's appointment. I'm not gonna be at a meeting this afternoon," as opposed to saying like, "Oh, I have another commitment." Just like normalize having a human body that needs to go to the doctor once in a while. Um,
Yeah.
I just I guess I continue to believe that bringing more humanity into the workplace, we are too far on one end of the spectrum, which is like show up in a certain way to be successful. There's a way in which everyone shows up naked to work, which is also not good, but we are very far
Probably
away
not.
from that.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think so.
yeah, I think we're safe. So, the more I think we can push it, and again, 10%, the more we can contribute to change.
Yeah. Yeah. And then sort of a sub or adjacent question, folks are pretty exhausted right now, especially women that I see or parents of any gender, any identity, but people are tired. And again, for many, many reasons, close to home, existential, and every level in between. And so, how does this, on one hand, change takes energy and courage, and that takes energy. On the other hand, my jacket's really kind of popping my energy today. Like I'm feeling really great
Hmm.
about it. So what's that how do you see these efforts and some of your recommendations costing versus giving energy?
Oh, I mean, some things can definitely give energy. I have a little section in the book there about dopamine dressing and the idea of like where what makes you feel good. So there's definitely energy givingness about it. Also, the more that we can reveal parts of our humanity, just
Mhm.
like, oh, I got to fight with my kid this morning because they didn't want to put on their shirt, and I'm like a little off today. Anyway, what's the meeting agenda? Like these sort of micro confessions
Yeah.
I don't think cost us anything. I think really
Mhm.
what they do is they build sort of relational empathy and connection
Mm.
with others. Also, like on the spectrum of being 10, 20% more just authentically ourselves at work, um, I think it actually feels really good. Especially I see in in the realm of social media that's things that are marketed to me as a 40 something woman is like all of the like you lose track of all the fucks you have to give. Like, where did they go? I don't know. Like, you just, I liked Elizabeth Gilbert. Like, just shaved her head. She has like a crew cut now and doesn't wear makeup. She's like, I was just tired of all the men getting to shower and walk out of the shower, get dressed, and go to work. Like I'm just not going to do it either. This is my hair. This is my face. I just think great. And I think what I've learned too is that people care less about us than we think. That in some ways, like I've thought more about how I've presented and I need to be doing this and that in order to be taken seriously. But a good small experiment where
Mhm.
I'm like, I am going to show up with my wet hair. I don't know. Is someone going to DM me and say that was very unprofessional? It hasn't happened yet. That
Please
maybe it will.
screenshot it if they do, please.
Maybe it will one day. Um, but I think it's a glorious thing to start experimenting with caring less.
Yeah.
And ironically, I would say too, some of the most brilliant professionals I know are the ones who telegraph not caring because they have the confidence of like, I'm really good at my job.
Mm.
Do you want what I'm selling here? Do you want this brain? You're going to have to take it without any mascara. Like, I just think that there's a lot of power in that. As
Yeah.
opposed to what I see a lot of junior consultants really dressing up in their suits and ties, trying to, um, again, like perform competence because this is what we think a business leader looks like. Well, I'm here to tell you business leader looks like someone in sweatpants with wet hair. That's a business leader too.
Yeah. Yeah. And caring, what else? I mean, we've talked a lot about the jacket or the socks or whatever, and that, but what else might we stop caring about? Because it's not the quality of the work and the creativity, obviously. What else might we care less about?
Um, Email response time is another great
Mm,
one.
mhm.
Um, I feel like I've been well conditioned by society or business culture to be a fast responder,
Yep.
especially in client service. Like, of course, there's a degree to which you want to be responsive, so there's good in that.
Yep.
And yet, I think I have caused myself more stress than was actually needed in reality, just feeling like this email is burning a hole in my pocket. I have to get back to these people right away. And
Yeah.
what's helped me
Or
is,
then you reply quickly and there's a typo, or you don't have a good idea that yet.
yeah,
Right, so there's also that. It's like, okay, quick, check, but, like, what about thorough or thoughtful or proofread or socialized with the group? Like, yeah?
yeah, yes, the speed over, like, what do we actually need to be communicating here?
Yeah.
And it also just contributes to a culture of needing to go super fast, and honestly, like, I'm kind of interested in how do we make culture go a little bit slower?
Mm.
And the and I actually think of it as, like, maybe we're doing other people favors when we respond slowly or push a meeting time in the way that, like, do you ever send an email and then someone replies to you, like, 2 minutes later, and you're like, "I just got this out of my inbox." Like, "I just
Totally.
got it
It's
out of
bad.
my court. Why is it back?" And, like, now my inbox is one
The
more.
ultimate hot potato. Yep. Yep,
Exactly,
yep.
right? Like, there's actually kind of something luxurious about I send it to that person, like, I don't have to think about it, just, like, get back to me. Or when someone's like, "Hey, can we move our meeting to next week?" Of course, sure, in some situations, you're like, "No," but most of the time, you're like, "Alright," "Free hour, yes, please." And
Yeah.
so I think it's a group effort to subtract that often self-imposed need to be fast, when in fact, as you said, what we need to be is thoughtful and human in our response times.
Yeah. Yeah. Also good, and, obviously, there's different levels to this of severity and different workplaces that are
Yes.
really clinically toxic and problematic in a mental health way or, whatever else that might be. And I think I warned you that if I wrote cliff notes, which will also age us, and some people will know what those are and others will not, but let's say I was your, Chat GPT, or actually newly this week, Quit Chat, onto Claude. If I were your Claude and writing a one-line summary of the book, I would say, "Work is a place where we are too scared or busy or distracted to go to the bathroom when we have a physical need to go to the bathroom." And I just think, like, that it stuck with me so viscerally, vividly in your description because it is that insane. Like, I promise that all of you watching have either been that person or seen that person. And, like, that literally leads to, like, UTIs, like, infections.
No.
I mean, it's like, it's no joke. So I
Yeah.
just, like, talk for a minute about the insanity of, like, what are doing to our bodies. I mean, Pfeffer, I think the Stanford researcher, like, work is killing us as of 5 or 6 years ago. I don't think it's gotten better, right? So what are we doing? How is this, like, remotely being allowed?
I know. It's really crazy, especially, like, things like, "Oh, I skipped lunch, I had back-to-backs." Like, did you know that prisoners get lunch every day? Like, you can be incarcerated and have a better meal plan than, like, what a lot of corporate, employees are
At
doing.
least regularity. I hear nutritional content is pretty aft, but anyway, yes,
Well, that's true. I
regularity
mean,
would
I am being
increase.
facetious, but I'm pretty sure
No,
at
no.
least, like, the timing is, like, decent than
Also,
most.
have you heard that your brain requires calories?
Yeah, a lot of them. It's, like, quite remarkable for its size. Yeah, so it persists because there's glamour in it, because we've glamorized this notion of, "I'm so busy in the back-to-backs, I didn't sleep much last night," and, like, because the subtext under I have back-to-back meetings is I'm very desired. I need to be there. People need me there, right? And, like, I get it. It feels good to be needed, and it feels good to telegraph that to others.
Mm.
But it is truly ridiculous that we are human beings, and it's one of the reasons why I think it's so important to say at work things like, "I have to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna eat lunch during our meeting. I have to go to the doctor." It's like w we think of ourselves as, like, these brains in a vat and not three-dimensional. Our bodies exist more than just to hold up our heads to Zoom level, like, which is normally, I think, how we see it.
Yeah.
Um, but, like, the not peeing when we need to in particular, like, that whole delaying of our just being a human, that's terrible for our nervous system too. Like, imagine what our bodies must think. Like, if we have not peed for 8 hours, we must be under attack. Why else? Why else would we not stop and be like, the bear must be chasing us. Not to mention, like, our blood sugar is, like, at the floor because we haven't eaten all day, like, we haven't moved.
Right.
Um, it's it's just silly, and yet it's so hard to prioritize or to,
Mm,
um, be vocal about that.
mm.
Or even just, like, the fact that, people are still slacking at 11 p.m. because you work on a global team and you got that blue light in your eyes and, like, you're not exercising because, again, it's not safe to show up with wet hair, and then
Right.
otherwise, how you bring your blow dryer to work.
Right.
So, um, one of the many reasons why work needs to be designed for humans. We are not robots. Thankfully, the robots are here, so let the robots work 24/7, but, like, we need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other side of it, again, there's an upside to just like getting back to baseline where you can empty your bladder when you need to empty your bladder. But the upside above that I see is like our bodies turns out contain a lot of data. And so when we open that up, right, we actually improve our performance by not only not hampering it with all these physical things around blood sugar and fatigue and whatever else. But also, we reintegrate this really powerful source of data about a partner that might not actually be trustworthy, even though on paper, in our head, they're a great partner, right? But if you don't listen to that little heart flutter and think it's probably because I haven't eaten in, 8 hours or because I had 7 cups of coffee this morning, no, it's because this person is not trustworthy. That's a real source of data that we lose.
Yeah, I mean, generally, our bodies do not like to be ignored. Like, this this is why pain exists, why hunger exists, why, like,
Right.
that feeling in your stomach like, our bodies are sources of information, and it's
Yep.
not good to start ignoring them. Not to mention the fact that, like, in order to do our job well, we use our bodies, and particularly, like, our brain. Like, our brain is not some like, flighty metaphorical thing. It's like the lump of flesh in our skull. It's and so if you think of it like an Olympic athlete
Mhm.
uses their body to perform, and therefore they take impeccable care of their bodies. They've got trainers and nutritionists, and, like,
Yep.
they're sleeping well. And because any professional athlete that's, like, trashing their body with, you know, terrible foods and staying up all night before their Olympic game, you'd be like, "What are you doing? That's the thing that
Right.
allows you to perform."
Yes.
And yet, as knowledge workers, we forget that our bodies still, our brains, allow us to perform. And it's very clear what makes a brain work well, which is, like, good sleep, good mental health, good nutrition. Uh, and yet those are the first things that go
Yeah.
when we're busy,
Yeah.
but somehow it feels more important to do a quantity of work with a brain
Right.
that's half functional
Right.
than to actually take care of our brains
Yeah.
and use them at their best.
Yeah. And by the way, fresh off the Olympics, right, those athletes take phenomenal care of their body. I mean, all the little clips of training I saw, whoa. But also their brains. Because
Sure.
it is a system. There is no strong quad good enough to do quad jumps on the ice if you're not in a good headspace, right? I mean,
Yes.
thank you, Alyssa Liu. Like, so if they're doing both, like again, it's a system. The gut brain connection is so strongly established now. All of that. So yeah, not disembodied brains. Um, the so it feels like we're in this very messy middle in a lot of ways right now,
Mhm.
right? And so I think a lot of that, right, the glamour of back-to-back meetings and not having eaten and whatever is very real. We all know exactly what that looks and feels like. And whether it's generationally or post COVID or kind of influencer media driven, there's also this, I would suggest, equally kind of unhelpful or at least inauthentic, but there's this other side of like, no, no, self care is real and that's glamorous or strategic or something, right? And again, it's kind of like an industrial complex version of self care, but that is emerging too. So there's this weird thing of like, we all know and kind of even say that the overwork is over. And yet we haven't stopped doing it in any significant social systems change kind of way. So is that coming? What's holding it back? Like, is there one Jenga cube that I can push to make it all topple?
I mean, in a systems way, we have not changed that much. As much of consulting as I've done, um, I have a friend, Joe O'Connor, whose book is coming out, or sorry, came out in January, called The 4-Day Work Week,
Mm,
which is, I think, maybe the best argument I've seen for how working less
cool.
does not cost companies their productivity or revenue. And in fact, it's important to take the gains that we get from any like AI or any sort of efficiency and share them with others. It's a long battle. I mean, they go, it's a great book, highly recommend, but it goes through the whole history of people used to work in factories like 14-hour days, 7 days a week. It took a long time. It was Henry
Mm,
Ford that first established the 5-day work week. And even that was inspired by capitalism because it was only the rich people that needed cars because they were the only ones that wanted to like drive off on
okay.
vacations. Most people just like didn't use cars to get to work. It was like a train or bus or walk or bike situation. And he's like, oh, well, how are we going to get people to buy cars? Let's give them some free time. So anyway, I'm glad it
That's great
happened.
history. Yeah. Yeah.
Nevertheless, but it's been a long process. So I should say, check out that book, and there's many others. Like, I'm not an
Mm,
expert in policy changes or anything like that at that level. Where I have more expertise or where I've seen more changes that at the individual level or at the manager level, because
mm,
that's where most people can affect change like tomorrow.
okay.
At the manager level in particular, like there's just very simple things you can do, like do a schedule send instead of slacking at all hours. There's debate over that as well, but I just think it's nicer, friendlier, right? Like you're trying to keep the work contained. At an individual level too, like you just have to, one of the mindsets I try to hold on to is that work is a bottomless pit. There will always be more. And so like I've gotten better over time at saying like, okay, that's all for today, folks. That's all we get. Uh, and then just also being more defensive of my family. So I have an 11-year-old daughter, a father with Alzheimer's. If I'm going to spend time with them, they cannot decline the client meeting. They cannot say, "No, I can't do that this week." Like, that's me. If I'm gonna spend time with them, I need to defend them. So I've gotten a little bit angrier in, like, a helpful way, I guess,
Yeah.
about my own boundaries. So
Yeah.
those are the ways that I start to see some of the grassroots, like, we don't wanna work all the time anymore. Not to mention, like, all of Gen Z is getting on this
Well,
bandwagon too, and they're getting flack for being a lazy generation, but also it's like, they look to older generations and they're like, "Well, how did that work out for you?" You
yeah.
know,
How's that
like,
actually going,
"Just
folks?
tired." Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, your book, in the meantime, before we buy any others, is fabulous, and people should read it and get it and use it and buy it for their bosses or their direct reports or their investors or whoever else we need to get on board with this. But your Substack is also so fun and good. So, as a teaser, you had 12 really actually fun things in February. I really loved making Valentine's work for you because I agree. I was loving what did I say that you were like, I didn't get that for a
Oh,
minute because it was
yeah.
hard to say. I was
We're
loving
loving I love
loving
loving
love.
love.
I loved loving love because I was like, just sprinkle love drops. And it's not like romantic, it's not cheesy,
Yeah.
bad chocolate. It's just like little drops of love. Um, is there anything fun in March or is March actually a bummer?
Oh, I mean, March is my birthday and my daughter's birthday. I had her on my birthday,
What?
double birthday.
That's
Um,
cool.
I actually really didn't want it because I was like, "I'm never gonna have a birthday again." But I was 10 days late, and so I had
Oh,
to be
wow.
induced, and, like, getting into the hospital was like getting into a fancy New York restaurant. They're like, "I'm sorry, we have no reservations on the 19th or the 21st. Do you want the
New
20th?" And
York
I was
is
like,
too
"I guess
much.
so. I mean, I
Fun.
don't wanna die." Like, I'll take anyway, we share a birthday, it's very cute. That's
Sweet.
what's fun
Yeah.
for me.
That's fun.
But I do think the last, for those listening, the post outlines 12 reasons why February is actually fun. And the one about anticipation still stands.
Yeah,
It's
right.
the idea that, we all love like a will they, won't they sort of romance. And like that's what spring is giving us. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I saw a little bit of green. Nope, it's a blizzard. And then you're like, oh, but a little bit of melting. And then it's like, oh, now you've got the black ice.
Yeah.
It actually be kind of fun and gratifying when you get that first warmer day. You're like, yes. And
You broke
that sort of
50.
like, yeah, like they kissed in season 5. It's that sort of so that's what I'm looking forward to.
I love it. I love it. And what other a closing invitation, practical or spiritual or anywhere in between, what do you invite folks to do if they wanna actually have a fun day at work?
Oh, you know, uh, the fastest way to have a better day is to make someone else's day, I
Mm.
think. This could look anything like, if you have a colleague who's working on something and say like, "Hey, let me take that for you." Like, don't you want someone to do that for you?
Yes, that's a love drop. Love
Write a
drop in
little love drop.
action. Yeah.
Send a little I call it a love bubble, a little two-line DM that's like, "Oh my god, you were so awesome in that thing or that thing you wrote or said or blah, blah, blah." 'Cause you know it's gonna make their day. You know that they're gonna screenshot it or send it to a friend or look back on it. Just
File it in their love folder.
yes! You gotta have a love folder. And then you get to walk around feeling nice like you made somebody's day. So that's always, I think, good go-to advice.
Love that. Well, your wet hair made my day, so thank you for that.
Yay, 'cause I
Maybe it's the
exercised. I feel very proud of
wind.
myself 'cause I didn't want
Yes.
to.
But you did it. There's the choice. There's the choice.
Yeah.
So good, Brie. Keep up the good work. See you more on Substack, and everybody get the book.
I wish I hold on.
You must have one.
I don't have a copy near here without unplugging myself, but this is a picture of the book.
That
Like
that
this
works.
like this.
It's
And
a really important cover. I should have gotten mine from the other room too, because the cover really, like, says a lot about what it is. So,
oh,
do it.
thanks. Yeah. Well, thanks for chatting. This is so fun. Glad
So
we got
fun.
inside.
I know, same. Thank you. Take good care, everybody. Great to see you.